Right, what's going on, guys? Welcome to the video. So everyone's favourite Scottish National Party MP appeared on the Sunday Politics show today, discussing the Remoaners in Parliament's attempts to block a no-deal Brexit and what else they plan to do to stop Boris Johnson from pushing it through. So let's check it out.
A little while ago, I spoke to the SNP's Westminister leader, Ian Blackford. I began by asking him what exactly this vote meant.
Last week was actually really important because, in a sense, it's a signal that Parliament's given to Boris Johnson. Don't dare think about proroguing Parliament. He hasn't been elected as Prime Minister yet, but he's had a shot across his bows. And I think the significant thing was that we had a majority of 41. A number of Conservative MPs, of course, voted with the motion and a number abstained. There is, I believe, a very clear majority in Parliament that wants to stop a no deal. Now, of course, we're talking across the chamber. It's right that we should be doing that. There are opportunities that we're looking at. We believe that we will have one. We need to be able to bring a motion to Parliament that would have authority, would allow us then to present a bill that can stop Boris Johnson going forward and pushing through no deal. So we believe that we can do that. Of course, this will happen when Parliament comes back from recess. It's a pity that we're going into recess the day after the Prime Minister is being appointed. But we'll have that opportunity in the autumn, and I'm more confident now that there is that desire across party in the House of Commons that no deal would be absolutely catastrophic for everyone. The Office of Budget Responsibility confirmed that.
So just what the plan would be, what would be to take control of the order paper, as happened earlier this year, and to put through a motion which would have to have legal force, wouldn't it? You'd need an act of Parliament.
Right. We would. That's absolutely right. So, I mean, there's a number of potential options that we've looked at. But, for example, we could bring forward a bill that would amend the Withdrawal Act that would strike out no deal as a default position. So it's up to Parliament to do this, because I think it's in all our interest that we stop no deal, and we in the SNP will certainly work collectively with others to make sure that that will happen. But I'm certainly more hopeful on the basis of what happened last week.
But just to spell this out, so you'd need an act of Parliament which basically mandated the government not to leave with a no deal on Halloween, and presumably to seek an extension from the European Union.
Or that indeed may even be taken out of their hands, because I think if Parliament gives that signal that no deal is not acceptable, then I would expect the European Union to take account of that and effectively put the UK in the position that it is in a longer extension. The European Union, and certainly the Council of Europe, will respect the decision which is taken by the UK Parliament.
The issue is still how you get through something with binding force. Parliament has already voted against a no deal, but it didn't make a blind bit of difference. What do you need to do to make the difference?
We need the, I guess you would say, the support of the Speaker of the House of Commons and the clerks for us to allow us to do that. But there are ways, I believe, that we can do that. You'll understand I don't want to spell them out exactly at this stage, but there are mechanisms that will allow us to do that in the autumn.
So he gives vague details of how these Remoaning fuckpigs plan to stop a no-deal Brexit and go for an extension, of course with the hope of staying in the EU, before going on the usual Project Fear nonsense shitweasels like him always spout about how catastrophic a no-deal Brexit will be. It only took him about 30 seconds to get Project Fear out there, without any counter-argument from the BBC host, as they didn't get anyone to counter any of the points he's putting forward here. Instead, the host asks him how he plans to block no deal. Do they plan to use taking control of the order paper like they did in March and try to put through a motion that has legal force, as Remainers are now having to admit that the default position on Brexit is no deal? Ian Blackford points out it's in MP's interest to stop no deal. No consideration for what might be the country's best interest. He knows a deal for the EU is the best thing for him and all of the other corrupt fuckpigs in Parliament. That's all he cares about. The BBC host does point out that all the Remoaners have been trying to block no deal for ages. What are they planning to do now that they'll make a difference and actually stop a no deal Brexit? Ian states he needs the help of the Speaker of the House. So John Bercow, the fucking snake who does all he can to hinder Brexit. But Ian refuses to actually say what they can do to stop Brexit, which makes me think they can't do fuck all, and are just posturing in the hope that Boris will cave. You would think if there was anything these Remoaners could have done to stop no deal completely, they would have already done it, let's be honest. But we will have to wait and see, I guess. Now let's check out the next clip.
I'm presuming you've talked to other parties about this. Have you talked to, are you confident that there are members of the MPs in the Conservative Party who would support that, because the crucial thing about what you're suggesting is that you would not actually be asking them to vote for no confidence in their own government. You'd be asking them to vote for a bill which prevented a no deal.
Well, all options have to be on the table, Gordon, but you're right. I think what we need to be doing, I think the immediate priority is to stop no deal, given the effect that would have. And yes, I would commit ourselves, the SNP, to work with others. And of course, we're talking to people across all the parties, and we're doing that in a collective spirit. I think that's what the voters would expect of all of us.
Now, your colleague Joanna Cherry seems rather down on the idea. There's a piece on the Financial Times website by her overnight, and she makes the point that should Boris Johnson, if it is indeed Boris Johnson who's the Prime Minister, prorogue Parliament would only be able to sit, because of this motion that was passed last week, for 5 days in October. And she argues there simply wouldn't be time to do what you've just suggested needs to be done.
No, because at that point we have to seize control of the order paper, and that's what we would do. We've got 5 days in order to stop Boris Johnson inflicting great damage on the people of Scotland and the rest of the United Kingdom. We can do it within the timescales we've got. The 5 days is absolutely sufficient under those circumstances. She seems to think
it isn't.
Well, I'm not quite sure that is the case. When Jana and myself are at one on this, we're at one, certainly we're working with other people across Parliament. I think Jana's as excited as I am about the success that we had last week, and we need to make sure that we seize that moment to finish the job, that we take no deal off the table, and I'm pretty confident that we can do that.
Okay, the other point she makes is that even if you did all this, should it come to a motion to revoke Article 50 to stop a no deal, she's concerned that would need, and let's not get into too much detail about arcane procedure, but it would need something called a money resolution. And that's in the control of the government. So even if you got 90% of the way, you could still be stopped.
Well, actually, Joanna and I have discussed that very topic. We discussed it last week. It's in the same situation that I discussed about a straight up and down bill that would strike out no deal from the legislation. And I think she is probably right that we would need, as you've described, a money resolution. But if necessary, we can bring a bill forward that would do that. That's one of the options that we have. And it's certainly... well, we could do that working with others, but it's certainly...
it wouldn't have to be the government.
No, any member of Parliament could do it, provided we can get it on the order paper. But the important thing is that we do this across the House, because we have to create a majority for that, and it's certainly one of the things that we have been exploring. So Joanna is right, and it's something that she and I have discussed over the course of the last few days.
Would you say, as of now, that no deal is still the most likely outcome?
No, I wouldn't. I mean, I accept that is the default position. That is what the legislation allows for. But I'm now pretty convinced that Parliament will do its job. It will stop Boris Johnson proroguing Parliament. It will stop Boris Johnson driving us out in a no deal.
A lot of people watching this will think, well, look, these are all brave words. But opposition MPs, the SNP, Labour and the Liberal Democrats and Plaid Cymru and all the rest of them have been coming up with this rhetoric saying they were going to stop no deal Brexit for months. That actually this is a woeful failure of members of Parliament to exercise their power over the executive. You've failed at every stage so far.
Well, look, I would accept that there's been some frustration on my part that we haven't been able to put that coalition together the way I would have wanted to earlier. But the indications are now that it is there, and I'm grateful that is the case. We should be focusing on how we finish the job, how we make sure that we don't fall out of the European Union on a no-deal basis. And I'm much more optimistic than I was the last time I spoke to you, as you'll probably recall.
All right, Ian Blackford, thanks very much indeed.
So did anyone else notice Ian Blackford's response at the start of that to the BBC host? When asked if Ian had been speaking to the rebel Tory MPs like Phillip Hammond and Rory the Soy Boy Stewart to get cross-party support to block no deal, Ian says all options have to be on the table. Is this mug cunt for real? Sits there saying all options need to be on the table for him to block no deal, while him and every other Ramona have been scheming to get one of the Brexit options taken off the table. No deal. The hypocrisy of this shitweasel literally knows no bounds. He says the voters expect all of the Ramonas to do all they can to stop Brexit, when last I checked, the referendum result was won by the Leave campaign, meaning the voters expect the fuckpig MPs to get us out of Europe, not keep us in it. Ian goes on to point out that they will do all they can to prevent Boris taking us out with no deal. Even if Boris prorogues Parliament, they plan to steal the order papers. Problem with that is, once Parliament is prorogued, and with the limited time MPs would have, they could not stop no deal. And also, once Parliament is prorogued, the default position is still to leave without a deal. I'm not sure how these Remoaners will get out of that one. Even one of Ian Blackford's own colleagues in the SNP has said there is nothing they can do in the time they have to stop a no-deal Brexit if Boris prorogues Parliament. So what can we take from that pile of shit interview then? Well, I would take that Ian Blackford and the rest of these undemocratic Remoaners have hit the peak of their desperation to stop Brexit. Let's be honest, they're not trying to stop no deal, they're trying to stop Brexit altogether. If they manage to somehow block no deal, we will end up with another extension, which will then lead them on to trying to push the Remoaners in Parliament to revoke Article 50 and keep us in the EU. We need a general election to deselect these Remoaning traitors and drain the swamp completely, because a new PM won't do that. The British public not voting for these scumbags is what is needed. Now I'm going to end the video there, guys. Let me know what you think down in the comments section below. Remember to like, subscribe and share the video as it helps the channel a lot, and I will see you all in the next one.